सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने शुक्रवार 2 अगस्त को इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड के जरिए राजनीतिक पार्टियों को कॉरपोरेट कंपनियों से मिले राजनीतिक चंदे की स्पेशल इन्वेस्टिगेटिव टीम एसआईटी से जांच करवाने की मांग वाली याचिका को खारिज कर दिया। सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा कि अभी इस कथित घोटाले की जांच की जरूरत नहीं है। जिन मामलों में किसी को आशंका है उनमें वह कानूनी रास्ता अपना सकते हैं। अगर समाधान नहीं होता है तो वह कोर्ट जा सकते हैं। दरअसल एनजीओ कॉमन कॉज और सेंटर फॉर पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट लिटिगेशन सीपीआईएल की याचिका में राजनीतिक चंदे के जरिए कथित घूस देने की बात कही गई थी। याचिकाकर्ताओं ने कहा कि इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड से दिए गए चंदे में करोड़ों रुपयों का घोटाला हुआ है। इस मामले की सीबीआई या फिर कोई भी अन्य जांच एजेंसी जांच नहीं कर रही है। ऐसे में हम मांग करते हैं कि कोर्ट की निगरानी में एसआईटी जांच करवाई जाए। चीफ जस्टिस ने कहा कि हमसे कंपनियों और राजनीतिक पार्टियों के खिलाफ जांच के लिए एसआईटी बनाने, गलत तरीके से लिए गए पैसों को जब्त करने, कंपनियों पर जुर्माना लगाने, कोर्ट की निगरानी में जांच और इनकम टैक्स विभाग को 2018 के बाद से राजनीतिक पार्टियों के दोबारा असेसमेंट की भी मांग की गई है। सीजीआई ने कहा कि वकीलों ने बताया कि हमारे पिछले आदेश के बाद सार्वजनिक हुए इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड के आंकड़ों में राजनीतिक पार्टियों की सरकार से फायदा लेने के लिए कंपनियों की तरफ से चंदा देने की बात सामने आई है। उनका कहना है कि एसआईटी बनानी जरूरी है क्योंकि सरकारी एजेंसियां कुछ नहीं करेंगी। उनके मुताबिक कई मामलों में एजेंसियों के कुछ अधिकारी खुद भी चंदे का दबाव बनाने में शामिल हैं। मुख्य न्यायाधीश ने कहा कि इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड की खरीद संसद के बनाए कानून के तहत हुई। उसी कानून के आधार पर राजनीतिक दलों को चंदा मिला। यह कानून अब रद्द किया जा चुका है। अब हमें तय करना है कि क्या इसके तहत दिए गए चंदे की जांच की जरूरत है। यह याचिकाएं यह मानते हुए दाखिल की गई हैं कि राजनीतिक दलों को चंदा फायदा कमाने के लिए दिया गया ताकि उन्हें सरकारी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मिले या उनके हिसाब से सरकार की नीति बदले। याचिकाकर्ता यह भी मानते हैं कि सरकारी एजेंसियां जांच नहीं कर पाएंगी। उन्होंने आगे कहा कि हमने याचिकाकर्ता से यह कहा कि यह सब आपकी धारणा है। अभी ऐसा नहीं लगता कि कोर्ट सीधे जांच करवाना शुरू कर दे। जिन मामलों में किसी को आशंका है उनमें वह कानून का रास्ता ले सकता है। समाधान न होने पर वह कोर्ट में जा सकता है। जांच को लेकर कानून में कई रास्ते हैं। मौजूदा स्थिति में सुप्रीम कोर्ट की तरफ से जांच करवाना जल्दबाजी होगी। याचिकाकर्ता दूसरे कानूनी विकल्प देखें। सीजीआई ने कहा कि कानूनी विकल्पों के उपलब्ध रहते सीधे सुप्रीम कोर्ट में याचिका दाखिल करना सही नहीं है। राजनीतिक पार्टियों से चंदे की राशि जब्त करने या इनकम टैक्स को दोबारा असेसमेंट के लिए कहना हमें जरूरी नहीं लगता। सुप्रीम कोर्ट के रिटायर्ड जज की निगरानी में एसआईटी गठन की अभी कोई जरूरत नहीं है। जिन मामलों में एजेंसी जांच नहीं करती या जांच बंद कर देती है उसके खिलाफ शिकायतकर्ता हाईकोर्ट जा सकते हैं।
Any preference given to or any quota reserved for a particular caste or race or tribe out of the quota reserved for the entire class of the scheduled caste for the government jobs by the state would certainly deprive the other members of the scheduled caste from having the benefit of reservation to the extent the quota is reserved for such particular caste or caste. Any such action on the part of the state would not only tantamount to discrimination in reverse and violation of Article 14, but would also tantamount to tinkering with the Article 341 of the Constitution. Article 15(4) is an enabling provision which enables the state to make special provision for the advancement of any socially or educationally backward classes of citizens or for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, and Clause 5 thereof enables the state to make special provision for them in respect of admission to educational institutions. Similarly, Article 16(4) enables the state to make any provision for reservation of appointments or posts of any backward class of citizen, which in the opinion of the state is not adequately represented in the services under the state. These provisions under Article 15 and 16 are merely enabling provisions and could not be treated as a source of power to legislate the law for subdividing or reclassifying or subclassifying or regrouping the caste, races, or tribes enumerated as scheduled caste, which have acquired special status by virtue of Article 341 of the Constitution. On the affirmative action, I said, under the guise of providing reservation or under the pretext of taking affirmation action for the weaker of the weakest section of the society, the state cannot vary presidential list and tinker with Article 341. Such power, if exercised by the state in absence of any executive or legislative power, would be colorable exercise of powers. It hardly needs to be reiterated that the idea conveyed by the doctrine of colorable exercise is that although apparently a legislature in passing a statute purports to act within the limits of its powers, Yet, in substance and in reality, it transgresses its powers, and transgression being veiled by what appears on proper examination to be merely a pretense or disguise. As well settled, the whole doctrine of culpable exercise is based on the maxim you cannot do indirectly what you cannot do directly. Any action of the state in the name of affirmative action, if not permitted by the Constitution, could not be validated or vindicated by the courts by molding or tinkering with the specific provisions of the Constitution. In view of the above, I am of the opinion, I've discussed Indra Sahani and Nagaraj and Janil Singh, and then I've said, I am of the opinion that Indra Sahani had sought to define backward class in terms of social backwardness while considering the ambit of backward class for the purpose of Article 16.4. It did not deal with the issue for the scheduled caste or scheduled tribes, particularly in the light of Article 341 or 342. Rather, it categorically kept the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes outside the purview of consideration. The scheduled caste being the most backward class amongst the backward classes and having acquired special status by virtue of Article 341. The question of defining backward class scheduled caste did not arise and rightly not dealt with in Indra Sahani for the purposes of Article 16.4 of the Constitution. The affirmative action of the states have to be within the constitutional framework, and if they are not, the courts cannot ratify the same by bending or molding the specific mandates contained in the Constitution. Article 142, even with the width of its amplitude, cannot be used to build a new edifice where none existed earlier by ignoring constitutional provision dealing with the subject and thereby achieve something indirectly which cannot be achieved directly. The action of the state, though well-intentioned and affirmative in nature, if violates the specific provisions of the Constitution, cannot be validated by the Supreme Court in exercise of its jurisdiction under Article 142. The removal of inequalities or remedy to remove inequalities cannot be permitted at the cost of violation of the specific provision of the Constitution. When the wordings of the provision of the statute, in the instant case, Article 341 of the Constitution, are clear, as also the intention of the draftsman of the Constitution, the court cannot add or subtract the words from such provision to give it a meaning which the court feels would achieve the goal of social transformation. Sometimes the affirmative action and the Constitution intersect with each other in complex ways, as affirmative action policies are framed by the states to promote diversity and to address historical inequalities, while the legal frameworks have to ensure that these policies are implemented within the bounds of the Constitution. The implementation of the affirmative action policies must align with the constitutional and legal principles, particularly those related to equality and non-discrimination. In short, the affirmative action and the legal frameworks, though both aim at more equitable society, they must navigate complex legal principles to ensure fairness and constitutionality. I am therefore of the opinion that the law laid down by the 5-judge bench in Ivicinea is correct and deserves to be confirmed.
I have divided my opinion into 7 parts, starting with introduction, amendment to the constitutions vis-a-vis the reservation with reference to the case laws, central government and state government's commission on scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and OBCs, ramifications of reservation, casteless society, caste system vis-a-vis the bond system. Reservation is only a medium of facility and its execution revives caste. And then the conclusion, which I agreeing with the scholarly separate opinions authored by the Chief Justice and Brother Justice Gavai, I summarize my views as under. The policy of reservation as enshrined under the Constitution and by its various amendments require a fresh relook and evolvement of other methods for helping and uplifting the depressed class or the downtrodden or the persons belonging to scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and other backward classes communities. So long as no new method is evolved or adopted, the system of reservation as prevailing may continue to occupy the field with power to permit sub-classification of a class, particularly scheduled caste. In the constitutional regime, there is no caste system and the country has moved into a casteless society. Except for the deeming provision under the Constitution for the limited purpose of affording reservation to the depressed class of persons downtrodden or belonging to SC, ST, and therefore, any facility or privilege for the promotion of the above category of persons has to be on a totally different criteria other than the caste, may be on economic or financial factors, status of living, vocation, and the facilities available to each one of them based upon their place of living, urban or rural. The reservation, if any, has to be limited only for the first generation or one generation. And if any generation in the family has taken advantage of the reservation and have achieved higher status, the benefit of reservation would not logically be available to the second generation. It is reiterated that periodical exercise has to be undertaken to exclude class of persons who, after taking advantage of reservation, has come to march shoulder to shoulder with the general category. The reference is accordingly answered, and it is held that sub-classification of scheduled caste is permissible in law for the purposes of reservation. Thank you.
Privilege of reading the lucid and Dr. Justice D.Y. Chanchud, Chief Justice of India, and Honorable Mr. Justice B.R. Gavai, respectively. I am fully in agreement with both opinions to the extent that the validity of sub-classification within scheduled caste has been held to be constitutionally permissible. Moreover, I am fully in agreement with the opinions to the extent that any exercise involving sub-classification by the state must be supported by empirical data that ought to underscore the more disadvantaged status of the subgroup to which such preferential treatment is sought to be provided vis-a-vis the constitutional class as a whole. However, on the question of applicability of creamy layer principle to the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, I find myself in agreement with the view expressed by Justice Gavai, that is, for full realization of the substantive equality inter se, the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, the identification of the creamy layer qua scheduled caste and scheduled tribes ought to become a constitutional imperative for the state.
और आप हमसे जुड़े रहने के लिए सब्सक्राइब करें YouTube पर, फॉलो करें Twitter पर और लाइक करें Facebook पर। और ज्यादा जानकारी के लिए आपको टाइप करना होगा सिर्फ न्यूज़ नशा।